So they started actually working on building roads, on building like check dams to harvest water. So there is a canal over there which comes from a large like a hydroelectric project. This canal was built in the 1970s, like a 50-kilometer long canal. But when it was built, it was found that the slope of the canal has been built in the opposite direction. So not a single drop of water has flown through this canal in the last 30 years. Okay. So they actually started making check dams because the canal bed was there. So they started putting check dams within the canal bed and started water harvesting projects over there. Because we were part of the project, started like first 17 and then that went on to like 30 primary health centers. Okay, these were health centers which we had taken over like various buildings of the village administration and started these health centers where this were being run for like 3 days a week. People, doctors from Calcutta used to go, we used to go and volunteer over there, and there were like 500, 600 people coming to these health centers every day. Where many of them had not actually seen a doctor before in their lives, mainly women, and we found that they suffered from like all sorts of diseases which shows malnutrition. For example, they had like anemia, low blood pressure, etc. So this actually generated a completely new sort of enthusiasm. So people were actually doing something over there, and this went on from like November till May. And in May there were these general elections in India, and the general elections in India are run by the police, you can say. It is like it would then look that the entire state is in the hand of the police, and in states like Kashmir in the north, where people are opposing the Indian state, the police actually goes into houses and drags out people to cast their votes. So without the police, elections are like they cannot be thought about. But here the people were steady, they wouldn't allow the police in. And then the state said that we have to have the police inside in order to have the elections. So then the people said there would be election boycott if the police tries to come in, and we will resist the police. So this was the situation which started happening in May. And then the government started negotiating with the People's Committee, with the representatives of the People Committee, and the negotiations were going on. And then there was an understanding was reached that the booths, the polling booths would be set up on the boundaries of this region, and people would go out, okay, and they can cast their votes over there, but the police would not be allowed to come into this area. So that an area, that a large region can continue without the state, okay, the so-called democratic state of India, and it can continue well, because I have been there during this time. There was no crime. It wasn't that there was complete breakdown of law and order. People were going away about the daily duties. People were going and paying things when they were buying things from shops. It was not like there was like complete looting, etc. going on. So that this was going on was unthinkable. But the state thought that we have to have the police in order to have the elections. But then that was solved, because the state finally agreed that there would not be any police, and the people actually went and voted outside. Although the polling percentage was very less. But during this time, another thing was also happening. That is, the governing party in West Bengal, which is called the Communist Party of India Marxist, CPIM, which is a complete misnomer for this party. This party had adopted this neoliberal philosophy as its own philosophy, and they have their armed, you can say, cadres, okay, which are called locally in West Bengal by the name of Harmads. The word Harmads actually originates from the Portuguese word armada, because in historical times, like in the 17th century, the southern part of Bengal had been ravaged by these Portuguese pirates. And they used to come in this navies called the armadas, and that has left this folk memory of devastation in the minds of people. So this armada has been modified into Harmad in Bengali. So this CPIM armed cadre are actually referred to as Harmads. So during all this time, they were launching repeated attacks on this when these people were rallying on this procession, on these rallies which were happening. In most of these cases, what was happening was that the armed squads of the CPI Maoists who were active in this area were the people who were going and resisting this armed attacks. I have seen some of these attacks myself, that how this Harmans, they were trying to enter into the villages, and then the villagers are rallying, then the rally breaks down because these people have attacked, and then someone calls up this armed squad which is somewhere nearby, and then they come, and then there is a firefight, and then the Harmans are pushed back. So this attack was happening, and they were becoming bolder and bolder because there was a state behind them. So this thing was happening, and so in June, in June 2009, this actually reached a flashpoint. It's fine. So this reached a flashpoint where a large number of people. Okay. So I guess so this is where I was. So I'll go ahead. So yeah. So this is basically the idea which is common among various people, and that has been the idea which has been propagated by the media also, is that this entire thing happened, this started off, this police repression in the villages, this attack on this woman, etc. happened as a result of this mine blast, this landmine blast by the CPI Maoists. But that is actually not the case. This area has seen this repression for the past 10 years, as I was saying, so like more than 10 years, from like 1998, ever since these people organized. And this has been because these people were actually fighting for, they were actually demanding development measures. And this is a set of like reports which were done by Nilanjan Datta, who was an intrepid reporter who had reported in 2002 in a series of newspaper reports from this area called From Inside Midnapur. These reports are there in the Sanghati website, where actually you can see the history of this repression. Means I quote from this report, say that while Chief Minister Buddha Bhattacharya, who is the Chief Minister, was thundering at a rally in East Midnapur on Sunday about the development work being hampered by extremist organizations such as the People's War. The People's War was the predecessor of the CPI Maoists who were active in this area. In these remote corners of West Midnapur, villagers were preparing to a movement on no other issue than development. So this has been the long-standing demand, and the response of the state was with oppression. The Naxalites have raised the Naxalites are another name for this of this Maoist insurgents, have raised their issues, these development issues, and the people responded. And the way this agitation had gone on this last 10 years were in the form of this deputations by going in a delegation to the government officials and requesting for this measures for like for a tube well or something like that, for like a hand pump to be set up, and to road blockers. So this and the response of the government was repression. And then this is like he's quoting a villager. So we are being punished for demanding development. Observes an old man. If one had to do people's war for a health center, one might as well do it, he remarks. So this is a quote from 2002. So people's demands were this: a health center, an irrigation, a pump set, etc. But the response of the government was this, basically. Scores of police vehicles began to roll down to the hamlets. 2002, heavily armed men in combat get descended. They broke into houses, dragged men, women and children out, beat up many and took away some. And everyone were referred to as like insurgents or guerrillas. And again, all this time, women have been particularly targeted. Like a particular woman he refers to, her house was raided like 10 to so many times, and she was assaulted with like the sticks and butts of guns. And so all the rapes, molestations, this was daily experience. Means I have gone and spoken with these people. Means people have described that it's an unthinkable that an entire area of a civilized country can go through this year after year. You know, like girl students cannot go to school because the schools are occupied by this armed personnel who wouldn't allow them to use the toilets. So the girls are forced to go out on the roads if they have to go to the toilet. So this has been going on. And this thing basically just broke the dams of the protest, basically, this incident over here. So this is the committee I was telling you, the People's Committee Against Police Representatives, police atrocities which came up, formed by these various people's committees from these villages, and they were meeting in this, this is like from a tree trunk where these posters were put. And then now the Adivasi, the indigenous youth were for the first time out on the streets, out on the open, with the traditional weapons, these bows and arrows, and they were really asserting. And you would be surprised to see the level of confidence in these young people who have been oppressed all this time. couldn't like move with their head high on the roads. Now they were out on the streets asserting their independence, their freedom. And there was this huge meeting. This is like a thing, and so this was harvest season, but people had cut down their crops, but no one was interested in like even taking the crops to their to their homes. Means people were just meeting like this. You can see on the boundary, these huge meetings, and there were this huge meeting with large number of women in attendance. These are the photos of the movement which you will see in various places by me, and women like resolute women, and everyone like armed with this, this traditional weapons, with this thing like which gives them the confidence. And women, as I said, like women resolute in their confidence, in their ability to take their own lives in their hand. This was a very impressive thing which I saw. So many young women just came up through this movement, and they created a women's wing of this movement. The men separately with the traditional drums, traditional weapons in these huge meetings. The meetings, this was so there were all these posters put up with this set of 13 demands, which I was referring to everywhere. And it says, interestingly, demands of the indigenous people and the common people. So from the beginning, the state tried to play the non-indigenous people, the non-Adivasis and the Adivasis over there. But from the beginning, this movement had a clear understanding that this was a combined movement of the non-Adivasis and the Adivasis together. So all these demands were like the demands of the Adivasis people in particular and of the people in general. So that is, all these posters had this thing. And this is a set of these 13 demands as I was telling. It's very interesting. I'll just go through this because, as I said, the superintendent of police has to say sorry, holding his ears. And particularly these atrocities on women has to stop. Guilty police officers who had physically assaulted women, they have to, this was again another form of a traditional form of protest, that they have to come to this village rubbing their noses on the ground. This was like the ultimate in indignity which you can put on like the police basically. And the police who have been injured by the police should be compensated. All the police people who are arrested in the name of hatching this conspiracy of blasting this landmine should be released, because they had many indiscriminate arrests in the villages. All the false cases and charge sheets registered against people framed as Maoists from 1998 has to be withdrawn. This is what I was telling. There were, as I said, every single male has at least a couple of false cases against them, and they are taken to this village, to this city where they do not have any money when they go. So they are stranded in the cities. So it's a horrible condition for these people. Rampant arresting of ordinary people without warrant and any place and time must be stopped. So all these demands were actually coming out from the real experience of the people. This was their day-to-day experience. So these things were part of this demand. Paramilitary camps, like all this which had been set up inside, has to be removed. And the state had alleged that a particular Maoist leader called Shashadhar Mahato was actually killed in a false encounter a couple of months back. They said that he has hatched this plan of this blast while he was in a certain village, and they had particularly targeted this village. So this is a sort of collective punishment which the state does. They say that if there are Maoist fighters are supposed to have gone into a village, they would go and burn down the entire village. This still continues. Last month, 3 villages in another state of India called Chhattisgarh were burned down because supposedly it was near a place where a police party had been ambushed. Okay, so this sort of collective punishment has to stop. All attacks on people's clubs and gautas. So there are a lot of these people's community organizations, clubs where people, just young Adivasis, they meet together for some sports or some activities. These were also targeted as being frontal organizations of the Maoists. So this things targeting has to be stopped. The cultural organization, etc. Then the police, there is curfew in these villages from the entire night, that has to be stopped. Police camps should not be set up arbitrarily in schools, hospitals, or like local government offices. This is a long-standing demand, as I said. And this is a sort of festering sore in the body of the villages over there. Means you can understand, if you have this police sitting in the school and your children being forced to go outside if they have to go to the restroom, then this is the sort of the indignity which they have to face. Attacks on the protesters by the CPI, this is what I was telling. These attacks had already started. From the first days of the movement, these attacks had started. Has to stop, and people who had been injured has to be compensated. And all the CPIM, this militia, this Harmads which I was talking about, if they attack the Adivasis or the common people, then the administration will be held responsible. So this happened from the day one. And in all these cases, it was this Maoist fighters who were part of this movement who were coming forward and actually resisting these attacks. So this was what happened. So this is like one of this meetings which are going on. So people, any people, like I have gone and addressed these meetings. There are like 50,000 people there, and anyone who is in solidarity with the movement, if you do not come with your organizational banner, you are welcome to come and address when you are talking in solidarity. And then the speakers are now dressed in this traditional Adivasi, this dress of this white. This is a school headmaster, a school principal. So he was arrested on the night of the police raids. Actually, the police had gone to a village and they were beating a woman, and he had gone and protested. He was like an elderly, respected person in the village, and the police immediately arrested him, beat him up, and put him in the jail. It was on this day that he had been released, because he had been put in this police camp. They had not yet been able to remove him to the city. By that time, this uprising had started, and the police just released him because they were so scared that the camp would be attacked. So he was addressing the meeting. He had just come out from there, Shamananda Mahato. And by this time, we had started organizing in Calcutta, which is the capital city. So this was the first march in Calcutta in solidarity with the movement, which says that in demand for rights on this water, forests and land, and in demand for development, and against this government oppression, the state oppression. This is a protest meeting in the city. So this was what we organized, and then these Adivasi leaders from all over the state came to participate in these meetings, which he's from the northern part of the state, but the Adivasi population, he came to talk into these meetings. And what was happening by this was that similar organizations were now being built in other parts of this Jungle Mahal region, okay, outside this Lalgarh area also. And they were coming out in solidarity. So this movement was now like spreading like wildfire in this entire belt. Okay, this is from another district where there was this, a similar committee has been formed, and they were having their meetings over these areas, and we were moving from one meeting to another meeting, okay, from one day to another day. And there were huge mass meetings everywhere where people were coming together. And by this time, this organization, we had organized in the cities already a solidarity forum called Lalgarh Movement Solidarity Forum, and activists from the cities were going to these villages. So there was this sort of interaction started from the Singur Nandigram time, when activists from the cities would go into these villages and would move in a combined manner. So these are our friends and comrades who are going into the cities. And these meetings will be protected by this young, teenage woman, armed with nothing, ineffective weapons, like axe or something like that, a machete. But this is the type of confidence this gives them, that okay, this is the people meeting, okay, 10,000 people, and we are giving them it protection. Okay, so these places were like surrounded by this woman militia, basically, you can see, and it was amazing to see this very articulate young woman who think that they are now basically the forefront, at the forefront of the struggle of the people. And now the movement was spreading within the cities in this region also. So this is like we were out in a march within the city, where the Adivasis, who were actually exploited by the city tradesmen, businessmen, etc., were now actually marching in front of them, beating their traditional drums with the traditional weapons, etc. Again, large number of women, children were participating in these marches through the cities. People were spontaneously coming out and joining these marches. And it was interesting, like as soon as a march would be called, people would, from one village, would beat this traditional, like instruments and blow traditional like pipes, and then people would come out of all the villages, and there would be huge such rallies which would happen. So this is going through, finding its way through these various like fields and villages, etc. Again, there's another meeting over here. As I said, 10,000 to, I have seen meetings with maybe 50,000 people over there. And this was a leadership which was coming up from this movement. Okay, this, as I was telling, this is leadership completely indigenous. There are people associated with various parties. Some of them were associated with the Trinamool Congress, which is the opposition party. Some of them were associated with the Maoists, who were active over there. They were all coming together to form the leadership of this movement. So over here, this person in when I look at this, I feel sad actually. So of these people, you see this 6 people sitting in the table. Of them, 3 have been killed already. Okay, 2 of them are in jail and 1 person is underground. Okay, so this person on the extreme left is Lalmohan Tudu, an elderly person who became the president of the organization. When the state forces moved into the area in June 2009, he went underground, went into hiding. But in 2010, his daughter had the board's examination and he had come back to his home that night to meet his daughter before the start of the examination. The police picked him up from his home and just shot him in cold blood. So he has died. This person over here is Chhatradhar Mahato, who became the spokesman of this movement. He was arrested October 2010 and he has been in jail since then. There are 30 cases against him, all false cases. Means as soon as he gets bail in one case, they start another case against him. Means 2 of those cases I know, because I know that I have seen all the charge sheets are actually on the same day. He's supposed to be in 2 places 50 miles apart, planting landmines. Means I don't know if someone can do that. So he was there. This person, Shido Soren, a young 22-year-old person who completely came out of this movement, became a very good organizer. Okay, he was shot dead 6 months back in a false encounter in a village. This is Ramakanto Mahato. He is in jail, and this person is who is this? Oh, this is Ashish Mahato. He is underground. So this is the entire leadership, this is the condition now, basically. So, but this leadership came out from this movement. You know, Chhatradhar Mahato became like the face of it, and even within this very forested regions, you know, surrounded by these hills and forests, we were having this huge meeting. This is like this area completely surrounded by this forest, and there were these huge meetings where the leadership was coming. Organizations from Calcutta were coming. You see this red banner over there, that is from a state government employees organization who had gone like 100 kilometers over there to express solidarity. Means it was amazing how people's long-standing, you know, grievances, long-standing enthusiasm had come out in the open over here. A cultural movement had begun also. The movement was building its own cultural troupe. So these were these young Adivasi girls. They had started this. So the form was their folk form, but the songs to which they were dancing were this new revolutionary songs. Okay, so this had begun over there. So this troupe actually, they also came and performed in Calcutta when we had a huge meeting in Calcutta over there. Again, you see these huge meetings, thousands of people. Then we had the first major convention in Calcutta where people from all over India came and expressed their support and solidarity. This is, some of you might know, Sandeep Pandey. He is a very well-known social activist in India. Gautam Navlakha, who has spoken, I think, here before. So they came and we had a meeting, convention, and then Chhatradhar Mahato came to the city and addressed the people in the city. So this was the first time it was happening in memorial times, that Adivasi leaders were coming to the city and addressing city people, telling them that we are the people. Okay, we are part of this country, so we should be recognized at least as that. Okay, and we are trying to build this new life for ourselves. So he was a very articulate person. He is in jail for the last 2 years or so. And then this thing, as I said, this vote had come, the elections had come, and then people said this very clearly that we want there to be. This is what is written in this wall. This painting. We want there to be election, but without police. If police enters the villages, the elections would be boycotted. Okay. So this was the demand, and as I said, there were negotiations, and the state actually finally had to accept it. Okay. Now, interestingly, you see this poster over here. This poster is about the convention which we had in Calcutta. So this was the sort of interaction. Someone had taken this poster, we didn't even know, and pasted it in these villages over there, you know. So this is something which gives us hope that we will have this sort of people's movements in future, where the urban and the rural divide would actually break down and we will move together. This was the health center which we had built. It's written on top, People's Health Initiative. Okay, so this was what it was. You see how crowded it is. Means there were like people were taking medicines from the city, going over there. Doctors were volunteering. Medical students were volunteering. As I said, on a daily basis, like 700, 800 people were coming to this. medical shops. And when the state government, when the joint central and state government forces moved into over here in June 2009, the first thing they targeted were these health centers. Okay, means all the 30 health centers were raided. Medicine worth like hundreds of thousands of rupees, which we had collected from people going door to door, were just destroyed. Were just thrown into water. And the police, the doctors who were working, and we had actually trained some of from the local people into giving like basic medical thing. They were all arrested. They were said that they were supposedly treating this Maoist fighters, and they were all been arrested. These local people who had been trained in providing basic medical service. So this was a very proud achievement. We used to all these developmental activities which were taking place. Used to be very proud of them. And then, as I was saying, the entire area was circled by this police forces, the special forces, which the Indian government is raising. They are now all over the country in this entire area, which is where the Maoist insurgency is going on. They have spectacular names like cobras and greyhounds and scorpions. Things which they think would scare the people. And they were surrounding, and there were continuous this sort of clashes happening between the people. And so this was a time when this was a particular incident when the police were trying to raid a village. And again, as I said, there were people who were being mobilized. Women who were cooking in their kitchens had come out with whatever they could lay their hands on, and they were moving towards the police. And this is the police coming, and like I was there somewhere over there, and this is about sort of confrontation. You can see there's the line of this police over there, and the line of this woman. And this is direct confrontation going on, and I am somewhere over here, and any of these things would have triggered. And finally, this is what happened here in June 2009. This would have triggered, a major clash. So the police were continuously trying to enter in this area. So in June 2009, what happened was something like this. There was a rally like this which was being led by women. And this armed militia of this ruling party, they went and attacked it. Okay, and then this movement, when this rally was broken up, and people were running helter and skelter, and then they became very angry because the woman had again been targeted after all this time specifically. So then they called upon the local, the Maoist squad, and this is very funny. Everyone seems to have the mobile numbers of these Maoist leaders whom the entire Indian state is looking for. So you can just call them on your mobile and they are there after some time. So they came, and then they went and attacked the house of one of the major CPIM leaders in the area. And they broke down this house. This was like surreal. The entire area with this thatched houses, in the middle there is this 3-story building with inside paved with marble. Of this person, of this local CPIM leader. So they broke down his house. And the people, they killed actually 3 of his armed guards. So these 3 armed guards whom they had were considered to be nightmares in the area, because they would have a reign of terror in the area. So they were killed, and their bodies were actually left lying on the streets for days, because nobody could even touch their bodies. So the state took this pretext. They said that there has now been an open declaration of war. And the West Bengal state government and the Indian state government, the Prime Minister since 2009, he has been continuously telling that the greatest internal security threat to the Indian state is this Maoist movement. So then they said that now we will move in. So they created this combined forces of the West Bengal state police and the central paramilitary forces, which entered into this area in June 2009. So that was the scenario which happened. And this entry of these forces, so these are the special forces which you can see armed to the teeth with weapons. Now they are being supplied with new Israeli weapons. Means apparently India has bought a large contingent of Israeli small arms which are being supplied to the soldiers over there. And they were, for the first few times, people resisted them with whatever they could lay their hands on, traditional weapons, what they use in their kitchens and all, but then they moved in, and this combined forces, their activities, means I wouldn't believe that a state can inflict this sort of atrocities on its own people. It can only be done, for example, like an invading army, and I have seen this wherever there are like minorities involved, be it religious minorities like the Muslim